Started. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Arias. Present. Councilmember Maxwell. Absent at the moment. Hawaii. Councilmember Chavez.
Here.
Councilmember Bredefeld.
Here.
Councilmember Esparza. Absent at the moment. Vice President Carbasi. Absent at the moment. And Council President Perea.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Next is the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be administered by Councilmember Bredefeld. Will everyone please stand? City Clerk, are there any changes or items removed from the agenda?
I've received no changes to the agenda.
All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda as? So moved. All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Arias and a second by Councilmember Bredefeld. Any objection? Seeing none, item passes 5-0. Okay, today we'll begin our budget hearings. We are going to take public comment now on all departments we will be hearing from today. Today we will be hearing from General Services Department, Information Services Department, Finance Department, Budget and Management Studies Department, and finally the Airport Department. Is there anyone in the chambers who wishes to provide public comment? Please come up at this time. Hi, good morning. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
Good morning. My name is Emanuela Gras-Torres, here on behalf of Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. And my comments are regarding the general fund. Leadership Council works closely with the residents who live in communities that have been impacted for decades, live with negative impacts, and the city's lack of investment in housing infrastructure, clean and equitable land use, planning, green space, to name a few. We have submitted a letter to the mayor and the council members listing many of the community members' priorities, programs, and projects that we hope will be included in the upcoming year's budget. We acknowledge that we are facing a deficit. Therefore, many of the budget asked for the communities are prioritized and the same of last year and still need to be funded. Also, we ask that the programs and projects that started receiving an appropriation of funds last year are not removed and continue to receive an annual funding. Many of the priorities included are directly related to the needs of affordable, safe housing and accessible housing. We ask for the continuance of permanent funding commitment for a fully funded comprehensive eviction protection program. While the COVID-19 pandemic may have subsided, the long-term economic and housing challenges that were worsened from the pandemic still exist. Our ask for $4 million will allow for the programming to continue to assist residents during the continual record-breaking housing crisis that we continue to see. We ask for the continual funding for temporal shelter and transitional living for youth and community. There are far too few options available for the youth and citizens that are returning into society after incarceration, which only leads to the cycle of homelessness and more susceptibility to negative influences. We ask for $3 million for the housing improvement and rehabilitation of older and blighted and abandoned homes, which would help the city of Fresno face its housing crisis and climate crisis. As our climate crisis continues to increase extreme heat weather events, we urge that the continual funding for lower income households to conduct weatherization improvements. We ask for rent control ordinances with just cause resolutions. This ordinances will allow landlords to gain reasonable profits while keeping families housed. You state that you support housing protections, but what programs and policies have you stood behind and fought? Thank you for your time.
You have 1 more minute left.
You state that you support housing protections, but what programs and policies have you stood behind and fought for, implemented for the constituents from the recommendations and priorities of the Here to Stay report that was brought forward by the Anti-Displacement Task Force? These are our comments. Thank you for your time, council members.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to provide public comment? Please come up at this time.
Yes, we have Brandy in.
Okay, I see no additional folks in the chamber, so we're going to go to Zoom. Up first, we have Brandy. Brandy, you have 3 minutes.
Hi,
First of all, I would like to mention two things regarding the process so that it's equitable. One, it would be very helpful for people to know prior to the budget hearings that all the public comment is taken in the morning, as they may be waiting to speak at departments and not realize that they may be missing that opportunity to do so. I also ask that if people are speaking on multiple departments, that there would be 3 minutes for each department, as you saw the things shared by Emmanuel, that would be important to have the time for things that are as important as our budget. I agree with Emmanuel and the things that are stated there, and ask that the needs and the vulnerability of our community be priority. As finance department is today, I recognize that the grant, federal funding grant had run out. I ask that you would make a motion during that item to continue that program. You've seen how absolutely crucial it is, and even with the pandemic passing, we have even higher rate increase and continuation of need for protection for our citizens. As a means of preventing further homelessness, we desperately need that. And I ask that with budgets, with everything that when you're asking where that can come from, that you would look towards funding such as the HEART team, which got an increase 2 years ago to at least $10 million for the police department. That is not helping people get out of homelessness, but is perpetuating it by taking their belongings, by taking their IDs, by taking their documentation, by taking the things that they need to move forward. And that money would be rerouted to such programs as the emergency protection and other needs that Emmanuel and us have asked for, including such things that will be mentioned in other departments such as safe camps and lived experience board to protect our unhoused community. Thank you.
There's no one else online.
Okay, so we will now start with our first department. Before we begin, I'm going to ask my colleagues if anyone has any budget motions or requests for memos, please provide or ask your staff to provide those in writing just to assist with us being efficient moving forward. Okay, up first is the general fund overview. General fund overview.
Well, good morning, Council President. My name is Henry Fierro, Budget Director. Today starts the FY 2025 budget review meetings. I will be providing the general fund overview. Then we'll proceed with department presentations. The format of the reviews will be similar to last year in that department directors will present an overview of their budget. Director and staff will be available to address and answer questions from council members. If I may, Council President mentioned about motions and requests for information, but I'd like to also add, if you do make a motion, it does require a second. And if so, what would be very helpful is what we did last year. You provided your motions via email. If you could send it to both myself and to the city clerk, we will then, as quickly as we can, incorporate that into our respective schedules. And that also goes along with requests for information. So again, very helpful if you can provide it to us via email. Once we have ended the day, our goal is to complete the motion and request for information schedules at the end of the day to turn around and get it back to you as well. So with that, council motions will be voted Wednesday, June 12th, and budgeted enabling documents are scheduled for Thursday, June 20th. June 27th is also reserved for a final vote if needed. So with that, I'm now going to move on to the general fund overview. The way the presentation will flow is I'm going to start discussion on the general fund major revenue categories, provide assumptions behind the FY24 estimate and 25 proposed budget, again by each main revenue category. After a discussion of revenues, then I'm going to move forward with reviewing the general fund budgeted expenditures by major category and by department. So if you'll bear with me as I work this clicker. Okay, so the first slide, slide 2, you'll see a pie chart of the general fund revenues. FY 2025 is budgeted at $504,200,000. Within this makeup of our revenues, you'll see that sales tax and property tax pretty much nearly equate to almost 67% of our ongoing total revenues. Along with that, you'll see then other main categories such as business tax, room tax, charges for services, and then all other revenue, which is further broken down in the table to the left. I also have a slide that will also show those individual categories and provide you a trend of what we've seen historically, what we're estimating, and then what we plan to budget for. Slide 3 now is showing again our major revenue categories, and what you'll see then is 2 years of history, what we anticipate for FY24 to end the fiscal year, and then in FY25, what we have budgeted. With that, you'll see that sales tax is projected at $147.7 million. That is a decline of about 1.3% from the FY24 estimate. The FY24 estimate, and as it's included in the budget book narrative, is it includes a one-time sales tax distribution from a local fulfillment center that related to an amended tax return filing in Q4 of 2020. The 25 proposed projection has been calibrated to not carry that one time over. So we're really honing in on what we believe is truly what we anticipate for 25. The next line, property tax, again, another major category, it is growing by 5.5%, which is in line with our 10-year historical trend. So we feel comfortable that 5.5 is a solid growth rate. The FY24 estimate is actually growing, predicted at 7.8%. That growth rate is in line to what the Fresno County local assessed property values were provided to us. And so we feel comfortable that that's where it's going to end, again, for fiscal year 2024. Business tax, room tax, they're truly programmed to follow our sales tax. There is a strong correlation between those two with sales tax. So again, we've programmed 25 to be in line with what we anticipate sales tax. The next line, charges for current services, that looks to grow by about 3.6%, which is about $1.5 million from FY24. And the bulk of that growth is reflecting what we anticipate as development activity expansion within our local economy. One last point on this slide. You'll see that our total annual operating revenue, it is budgeted at $480.5 million. I just wanted to point out that that is a growth rate of 2.8% that we are anticipating. Now this next slide is showing you a further breakdown of our all other revenues. You'll see that top category is our franchise fees. That's growing at 8.2% for FY25. And the main driver for FY25 are two components primarily. One is our commercial solid waste fees are pegged to grow based on our gross receipts, plus PG&E franchise historically is showing a growth as well, so we have programmed those growth rates in 2025. You'll see next is intergovernmental revenue. What that is I'll give you an example, is we have contracts for PD with our schools, unified school districts. They provide school resource officers, and that's where we then receive our reimbursements for that service. Along with that is the SB 90 state mandated revenues. We also are receiving some revenues from the successor agency for the RDA. We're down to one last loan payment, and we have programmed in the payment we anticipate in FY25. Next is the intra-governmental revenue line item, and what that corresponds to primarily is the city's cost allocation plan. That basically is the recovery of general fund department services to other city departments that are non-general fund. Then moving down the line, we also have the Prop 172 sales tax, which is really, it was an enactment in 1993 that allows us to receive this half-cent sales tax that was to mitigate what was called ERAF, Educational Revenue Augmentation Funds. And then the real estate transfer tax, that's with the transactions when a home is being sold, that then a 1.1 or $1.10 per thousand is then applied to that transfer. Next line is our card room. We are projecting, if you'll see, $1,021,000 in FY24. We look to see $1,051,000 or 52 in FY25. So the trend has been within just above $1 million. And then finally, we just have a category called Other, that we have transactions that do not fit in the items above it, which really is less than 1% of the total general fund. One last comment on the other. You'll see it going down by about almost 900,000. Big reason why that's going down is in FY24, there was a 25th AAR amendment that you approved, and that allowed for an interfund loan from Brownsfield's revolving loan fund for a demo of a city-owned property.
Director, I think you skipped over the cannabis line item. Can we go back and touch on that one, please?
Sure. Now, with the cannabis, you're going to see it grow by 4.9 million from 24 to 25. And what's happening is in 24, we are anticipating 13 businesses that have been established. And then in 25, we're growing that, and projections are saying from 13 to 19, which is then driving that anticipated increase. So I'm going to move on to slide number 5, which now shows you our sales tax over 10 years. And as I mentioned earlier, we're looking to receive about $147.7 million in FY25. That projection, again, is down by about 1.3% from FY24, primarily that 24 had that one-time adjustment. And we're also gauging that on, now we have a new consultant, HDL, and we're working with them. They've provided their guidance to help us plan for not only 24 estimate, but for now FY25 and going forward. One point to make about our sales tax is the top 9 categories, industrial groups, I should say, they account for 81% of our total sales tax received. I'm going to move on to the next slide, slide 6, which is now our 10-year history of property tax. You'll see that it's at $189.8 million. And again, we're growing FY25 in line to what we have seen over the 10 years at a growth rate of 5.5%. Again, FY24 is looking at roughly 7.8% growth, but again, we're smoothing it to our 10-year historical trend. I'm now moving on to the appropriation or expense side of the budget for the general fund. This slide here is showing you a comparison of expenditure categories for the FY24 amended budget compared to the FY25 proposed budget. The FY25 proposed is at $482.9 million. What you're going to see as far as the makeup is personnel categories from employee services, health and welfare, retirement, pension obligations, workers' comp. That accounts for 72% of our total expenditure budget. That is really the largest categories that we have to budget for, to fund for. The appropriations are growing at $17.8 million versus the 24 amended budget, which is about 3.8%. Health and welfare is budgeting to grow at 5%, and that is based on rates approved by the Health and Welfare Board back in March of 2024. Retirement is based on rates approved by the Retirement Board as of November 22nd. The employee rate was at 14.06%, while public safety rate is structured at 23.1%. The public safety rate basically has an effective increase of 9.5%. You'll also see workers' comp, which is at 27.5 million. That's a growth of approximately 8.5 from the prior budget. Operations and maintenance, or O&M, that is actually going down by 14.8 from the amended budget. Primarily that we had 2.3 million appropriated through an AAR to address your 23 carryover into 24, which is technically one time. And then also our citywide departments are one times. We excluded those. So that also contributed to the decline. And then lastly, our interdepartmental charges, or as we call them, IDs, they are up by about 7.3 million. One of the big drivers is about a $4.5 million increase due to the liability claim reimbursements. We also have our growth in fleets, which is worth about 1.1 million growth, and then about 2.7 million growth in technology services. So I will move to the next slide. This slide here is going to show you a pie chart of now the FY25 appropriations, but now by department. What you'll see, though, is for public safety, that's approximately about 68% of our total expense, total appropriation budget. Then you'll see the makeup of the remaining departments. What I categorize as general service departments, which includes the city attorney, mayor, city manager, council, finance, economic development, the budget department. We nearly account for about 13% of the budget. And then lastly, parks is about 5%, while animal center is about 1.7%. Now, my last slide is showing again the FY25 budgeted for appropriations or expense. And again, you're seeing a trend of 2 years of actuals, FY22 and 23, the amended budget, and then what we've programmed as the FY25 proposed budget. The point I want to make about this slide is contractual obligations that each department is needing to take funding for, that has been built in the budget. Okay. Also know that we're going to have department presentations, so there'll be further discussions of their budget, of their appropriations. I'm just touching the high points, but you're also going to hear in the department's discussion is, in addition to funding their contractual obligations, is we have now also built attrition savings within each department, as opposed to last year, FY24, we had budgeted centralized in the general city purpose. And then one final comment is, for the fire department, you'll see how from FY24 to FY25, the funding that they are provided by the general fund is going down. However, they are truly 100% funded for their operations across multiple funds. So when you take general fund plus, for example, ARPA plus grants, their operations are fully funded. Council, that completes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you very much, Director. Up first, we have Council Vice President Karbasi.
Thank you so much, Director. I just want to confirm on May 16th, I sent emails regarding council directions for public works, capital projects, parks, and fire. I just want to confirm they were received and they're in process.
Councilmember, that is correct. They have been received and they're in the process of getting finalized to get it back to you.
I'm going to send another request coming in, but I'll just state on the record. I just want council a memo on the history of our franchise fee with PG&E when it was last negotiated and how it's grown in correlation to the rates of PG&E going up.
Okay.
As well.
And again,
I'll
you'll provide that.
Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Council President. Director, this budget, when it was announced, was sold as addressing a $47 million deficit, and put some alarms out there about significant reductions being needed across the system. But when you read the budget, I noticed that you're actually adding positions in the city, correct?
I can say in the general fund, there's only one position being added.
Across the city?
And that was the city clerk.
And that
even
position was being added only due to decreases in their budget. Good morning. Decreases in their budget in other areas at a net zero cost.
So how many positions are being added across the city?
Let me grab the book here.
Thank you.
So while he's looking, Councilmember, when we talked about the deficit, we're talking in terms of the general fund, and it is correct. We had a pretty significant gap to fill in order to present you with a balanced budget, and I think the mayor presented that of how we filled that gap. So what we presented to you a couple weeks ago was a balanced budget with no deficit. Just want to clarify that comment. And Henry.
Correct.
So if I may, the total new positions that were added is at 68.
68 new positions?
Correct. And that's across various funding sources.
And remind me, when we add a position to a department and there's a charge of service to the departments that use that position, that has an impact on the general fund, correct?
It,
If the finance department adds 3 positions, the finance department, to fund those positions, is going to have to increase the fees that they charge all the departments in the city, correct? Including the
Well,
general fund?
with the finance department, they didn't, for example, add. However, what would happen is, and let me take my department. Okay, we provide a service across the city.
Correct. So say you're adding 5 positions.
So if I was to be adding 5 positions, through the cost allocation plan, my services would be recovered from the non-general fund departments.
Only non-general fund departments?
Because we're all, if council is general fund and I'm general fund, we're coming from the same source of funding, so it doesn't really make sense I'm charging you because it's coming from the same source.
But our budgets, for example, if you're adding 5 positions in the finance department, you eventually have to pass on that higher cost to our department, correct?
The answer is actually no, because we're both being funded by the same checkbook. It's when it's a charge to a different, if you will, checkbook, like say the enterprise. Then
So would
where I'm
the
asking
general
to
fund
be
not have to
recovered.
increase to address the positions?
Excuse me?
Would the general fund not have to increase every year?
Technically, it would, or something would have to be offset in the general fund to balance it.
Okay. Can you provide me the information, and we'll put this in writing as you requested?
Yes.
You gave us the slides of the growth of the general fund since 2019, I believe, or 2016, to be exact, in slide number 5. Can you provide also the growth of positions since that year across the city?
Okay.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Arias, again, you're looking for, and I just want to confirm, you're looking for all positions across the city,
Yes.
correct?
I want to confirm the growth of our city government has grown exponentially with the growth of the general fund. On slide 5, on projections or sales tax revenue,
Yes,
you indicate that you took your projections for 2025 based on HDL guidance.
correct.
Are we still using them for projections and guidance?
HDL, that is correct. They are actually our new consultant that we had a RFP back in the fall of 23, came to the council requesting approval.
Before it was a muni service report, correct?
That is correct.
So we don't have any history with them on whether their projections have come in on target?
I can tell you that during the RFP, I reached out to references as part of the review, and that was one question I had asked references, and they were very consistent that HDL was pretty accurate in their projections. And that gave us a level of comfort in that evaluation.
So you're projecting an increase in sales tax of 5%, but an increase of property tax, but a decrease in sales tax?
That's correct. Sales tax is projected to have a 1.3 decrease from FY24 to FY25.
Councilmember, I think you said an increase of sales tax of 5%. No, that's not what we're
That's
projecting.
First,
That's property tax.
property, yes. You're projecting an increase of 5% in property and a decrease in sales tax.
5.5% in property tax
And a decrease of sales tax.
Correct.
of 1.3%.
1.3%
Based on whose projections are you suggesting a decrease in sales tax?
with the guidance of HDL.
What's been our historical increase in sales tax for the last few years?
I mean, if just ballpark, I mean, if you look at the chart, it was growing as the economy was doing fairly well. And then with the stimuluses that, if you will, embedded into their economy, it was helping grow. But we're seeing now this slower growth to even a decline. And also point out in our discussions with HDL, that's not just for us as a city. They're also seeing that across other clients across the state.
You're estimating or projecting an increase in cannabis Is that included in your sales tax projections? Because cannabis is sales tax, correct?
There's a little piece of that, yes, but I'm stripping out the sales tax for cannabis and showing that strictly in the cannabis line. So I'm not trying to double count for that.
Okay. And the typo accounting issue that we had last year or recently over the distribution centers, has that been accounted for in these projections?
If we're talking about the one-time adjustment, which I believe that's what we...
What was the amount again?
The one-time adjustment was $5.6 million.
But we then, as we worked with our new consultant, the projection FY25 has excluded that one time. So we're not double counting or overstating our projection.
Okay. And
And just to be clear, council member, that was to the good for 1 year, but then it was unfortunately relied upon for the future, so then it had to come down for the future.
And you guys made up that higher projection of that one-time adjustment, how? Through higher projections of property tax or through cuts?
So what I will say is that was part of the 47 million deficit that we addressed in a number of different ways. I think the mayor highlighted those for you when he presented the budget.
Okay. Can we get a list of all the cuts that were included in the proposed budget? I haven't seen a clean list. If you can just provide us an Excel of every single cut, how much was them and for what item? I want to get a clear picture of the $47 million gap closure. And my last question on the general fund. Does the general fund assume the Prop 218 increases? I know that's enterprise, but I'm sure there will be some charges to the general fund at some point, or obligations.
No. At this point, I'm not aware of what charges would occur in the general fund based on this Prop 218.
How much money in the general fund is set aside for settlements? Legal settlements, to be exact.
Are we just talking outside legal in general?
In general. I know you made a reference to a higher cost for risk, which that in plain English is when we get sued, we engage in settlements. Every department pays their fair share of a settlement. How much are you including this projected budget for settlements?
So I just want to be sure I'm on the same page. So we're talking about our risk funds like workers' comp, property, liability. Allow me to get you that information because I don't have that in front of me.
Okay.
So, and I think and he'll get you that information, but it's important to note that those are budgeted on, I believe, a 5-year average. So we look at the claims history over the past 5 years.
Yep.
That's the way it's been done here for decades. So it's not specific to last year or what we think is going to happen this year. It's based on the average of the last 5 years.
Yeah, and we have seen that amount increase every year.
Probably.
Are we still self-funded for $5 million instead of $3 million as previously?
Correct, yes.
Yes.
Is that changing in your projected budget?
No, still the same.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Director, I just had a clarifying question regarding cannabis.
Okay.
The 7.1 proposed for 2025, 7.1 million, that is assuming we have 13 dispensaries online, which I believe you said we do today?
Today. And that would be growing in 25 to 19.
To 19.
Yes.
So the 7.1 is taking into account 19 open dispensaries?
Correct.
Okay. Are we projected to have those opened by this upcoming fiscal year?
When you say this coming fiscal year, are we saying 25?
25, yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And then at what point, can you remind me what point of the year we will start to realize where we're at and whether or not we're close to hitting or on track to hitting that 7.1 million?
We're going to keep monitoring it as we then progress into the new fiscal year. I would say by quarter, we'll start to evaluate how we're getting the progression to the 19. I would say by the second, if you will, first half of the year, we'll then have a very good pulse.
And we're on track to hit our 2.0 2.26 estimate for the end of this fiscal year.
I'm sorry, which line are you looking? Council
For
President?
cannabis, I guess my question is,
Oh.
do we know more or less what we're expected to hit by the end of this current FY '24?
At this time, we're looking towards that 2.3 million.
Yes, we are.
2.2, okay.
We are, Council
And
President.
that's with the 13 online? Okay,
Yes.
okay. All right, Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Council President. Just a couple of questions as we're going through the budget conversation. Henry, on the budget summary, we have a compilation of all the expenditures we received, the one-time funds, the CARES, the ERAP, and the ARPA. I think it's $370+ million that we have. I'd like to get, it's not necessarily a question today, but I'd like to get an accounting of where we spent those funds and just kind of have the council get a breakdown of what's been expended and what we still have in the queue for those funds. And then also,
Excuse me, Councilmember,
Yeah.
if I may interrupt. Is there a certain page you were looking at, or?
yeah, it's in the initial budget summary of the budget book, page 2 of 11, the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. Then
Thank you.
also, and I'll have some more specific questions when our police and our fire budget, but I did notice that we referenced that there are certain stations that are receiving more calls than others with regards to our fire folks, with regards to our PD. I'd like to kind of get a summary from our chief when he does the presentation of what types of calls he's seeing, what trends. I know that, you know, murder rates are down, certain specific crimes are down, but other types of crimes, burglaries, break-ins, things of that sort. I'd like to see a breakdown of that as well from for PD. For the sake of this conversation, you know, obviously that would be our quadrants that the city's divided up into. And then for our fire stations, the number of calls that they've received in each fire station, and kind of get a gauge of where we're seeing the additional calls come from. And then with regards to the trolley that we have for the brewery, I'd like to just kind of get some raw numbers as to what that looks like, how many riders we're getting in for that trolley when it is being used. The last one.
Actually, Councilmember, there is actually a memo in progress that we're close to publishing.
Okay.
So.
And I think Mr. Barr is going to cover that in his presentation, so if we don't answer your question, we'll make sure you clarify what else we need to get you.
Okay, perfect. That'll be all. Council President, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I have no other council members. Follow-up question? Okay, Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Council President. Henry, or Director, or Assistant Director, or Executive, whatever you're, Director.
Just don't call me late for dinner.
Okay. I recall the frivolous debate over the Club One card room, and there was projections and a sales pitch around it would be a $2 million operation, I believe, if this body approved all the tables to be activated in the card room. But I'm still seeing the projections not hit those marks. Can we get a memo on what was the committed projections of revenue when the council approved additional card tables, and what, if any, is there is a reason? How many of those tables are actually active? And what is the revenue of the card room for the last 5 years?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have no further council members wishing to speak at this time. And just as a reminder, colleagues, to please submit your questions and or requests for information in writing as well. Up next, we have General Services Department.
Thank you, Council.
Great job, Henry. Okay.
Good morning, Council President, Council members. My name is Brian Barr, Director of General Services, and I will be presenting GSD's budget. Okay, there we go. Perfect, okay. General Services Department is responsible for supporting the city's core services. This includes facility management, fleet management, procurement, and other administrative support functions. GSD is an internal service fund provider. Like all ISFs, our expenses are recovered from the services provided to our customers. However, the purchasing division is supported by the general fund and is offset by charges to capital improvement projects for procurement services. Our FY25 budget totals nearly $76 million, which is a decrease of $22 million from the FY24 amended budget. The decrease can be attributed to several one-time funding requests that do not carry over into the FY25 budget. General Services is requesting a total of 12 new positions. For FY25, Fresno Hop operations will move from FACS into GSD. Our budget includes 3 drivers and 2 transit supervisors for trolley operations. In addition, it includes 7 additional positions in Fleet Management Division. The additional positions in Fleet Management are designed to increase our internal capacity to perform maintenance and repairs. This in turn reduces our need to rely on external repair shops, which are much more expensive. More on this topic in a few minutes. In regards to the top 4 most impactful budget increases. Number 1, we have included an additional $776,000 to pay for the rising costs with automotive parts. In the last year, we have seen the average price of parts increase by 36%. Since 2019, we've seen that average price increase 66%. Number 2, we have included an additional $619,000 for anticipated utility charges. General Services is responsible for the payment of PG&E bills for City Hall, Municipal Service Center, and Santa Fe Depot properties. Number 3, we have included an additional $221,000 to pay for the rising cost of tires. We're seeing an increase of 19% in the cost of new tires and 33% increase in retread tires for our big trucks. Now, number 4, on a positive note, we have reduced our fleet outside repairs account by $447,000, which equates to savings in ID charges to our customers. This account line pays for labor and materials for work sent to independent repair shops. General Services periodically sends repair work to outside vendors. Ideally, we use this strategy when repair work is specialized, such as glass repair, transmission overhauls, or tasks requiring uncommon tools. As the city's fleet has grown, GSD has needed to increase its use of outside vendors to keep up with standard repairs. This has increased costs to our customers, as the average labor rate for outside vendor is $188 per hour and can go as high as $250 per hour, whereas GSD's internal labor rate is $136 per hour. Shifting work from outside vendors to the 7 added positions will result in a savings of $447,000 in ID charges to our customers. We will utilize existing shop space for the added positions. This can be accomplished by relocating equipment on the shop floor, creating additional workspace, and establishing a new swing shift. We have included several notable programs and initiatives in the budget for FY25. Number 1, operations of the free Fresno Hop trolley service will be moving from FACS to a new division in GSD. Since launching in November, we have counted over 4,700 passenger trips operating Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. The total budget for trolley operations is $790,000. We have included $175,000 to begin a conservation of the city's public artwork installations at the Convention Center, Fulton Street, and Mariposa Mall. We have included $108,000 to replace a 50-year-old fire alarm system in the Municipal Service Center. We have included $60,000 to refurbish and reupholster the seats in these chambers, which are in fantastic condition. Lastly, we have included $20,000 for software to manage the city's commercial leases. This is very important to maintain compliance with the new lease Accounting and Financial Reporting Standards, known as GASB 87. Now, before I end my presentation, I would like to recognize the dedicated and hardworking staff behind me that made this budget possible. Thank you, team. Appreciate it. Council President, this concludes my remarks, and I am available for questions.
Thank you, Director. Up first, we have Councilmember Maxwell.
Good morning, Director. I am looking at the footnotes on page 3 as it relates to the Fresno hop. Can you talk a little bit more about that? This was currently under fax, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And all the positions are being moved under your department?
We are not moving.
Councilmember, could you get a little closer to your microphone? I'm having a hard time hearing you. Thank you so much.
Yep, sounds good.
Actually, could you repeat that question?
All the positions are not going to be going to your department?
We're going to be adding positions to my department. We're not taking positions for fax, we're adding positions to general services.
Okay, so the positions are going to be split amongst 2 different departments for Fresno Hop?
Well, so currently, Fresno Hop is currently being operated 100% by fax, using their transit supervisors, their drivers, their capacity. We're going to be moving it into general services, so we have more flexibility in how we deliver service. We can change our routes, our schedule at any given time on a whim, service Porch Fest, Yes events, or any,
To clarify just a second, so it's in fax now,
They'll be
funded
moving
by
the
the general
existing.
fund, funded by the general fund. It was because we had to put it into operation quickly. It will be moving in 25 into GSD, still funded by the general fund, same amount of money, but we created specific positions related to the trolley instead of using bus drivers because their MOU is different. So we did a side letter with ATU so they would allow us to move forward to get the trolley up and operational, and it was more of a temporary basis, but in 25, we're going to be shifting that over to GSD out of fax because their rules are different when it comes to federally funded operations.
So just clarification, City Manager, right now they are ATU members within the fax department.
Correct.
And the proposal is to have them become,
There will be a new job specification under ATU.
okay, they'll still be ATU members.
Correct.
Okay, this goes back to Councilmember Chavez's question. I'll let him do more follow-up, but I want to make sure I understood the full operational cost, including drivers and everything else, $790,000.
That is correct. yes.
General fund commitment.
It is funded. General fund is one of our revenue sources, but that will be offset through other revenue streams such as charter services or even sponsorships of the trolleys.
What percentage of that $800,000 do you attribute towards those special revenues, whether that's charter or private events?
Well, that right now it's $790,000 to operate the entire service.
Correct.
Okay? Any revenue sources will reduce that need.
Yeah, I'm specifically interested in what percentage we think that's going to be because it's a general fund commitment. And if we don't receive any of those additional contracts, whatever, it will come out of the general fund. So I'm just trying to understand what percentage we anticipate coming from special revenue sources.
So we won't go any higher than $790,000. So if we get any other revenue from charter services, it just decreases that number, 790, 780, 770.
This last year, how much did we receive in special revenue for the hot bus?
We are currently signing up a few vendors for sponsorship of putting their business logos on the back of the trolleys. And we have been able to do charter services because it's being operated under fax. Okay. The services that we've been able to operate specifically for a few council districts has been operated strictly within general services and our transit supervisor driving, and that's been 1 or 2 times. That's been nothing.
Okay, so it has not been available yet for charter services?
Not yet.
Okay, that's all my questions. I appreciate all your help this last year. You've been very helpful to me and my office on a number of different projects and issues, so I appreciate it and look forward to working with you, Director. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to help.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Arias.
Director, when was the last time the seats were upholstered?
2014, 15.
And are you looking at all of them or just the ones that are damaged?
All of them. It's time to do all of them.
And is that a general fund obligation?
Yes, it is.
Are we charging any of the various departments that utilize these chambers? for the cost?
That comes out of our City Hall Repair and Replacement Fund, where the charges are distributed against all departments here in City Hall.
All of them? Planning Commission, Fire Department, Police, everyone who uses these chambers for events and ceremonies?
That's correct.
The trolley, I'm struggling to understand, Director, why you would need 2 supervisors to supervise 3 drivers. That ratio of 1 supervisor for 1.5 employees seems to be out of whack from what I'm used to seeing. Why do we need 2 supervisors to supervise 3 employees?
It comes down to redundancy and the ability to need to be able to take a vacation for our employees, as well as I believe one of them will be a part-time supervisor. No, it won't be 2 full-time positions, 1 full-time position, 1 part-time position.
So you need a supervisor and a half to supervise 3 employees?
Well, we have 30 hours of revenue service, so to speak, and then we'll have charter service in addition to that. So we'll actually have more than 40 hours worth of work a week.
And there's nobody in your department that can do that work?
No, this is appropriate for a transit supervisor job.
So by moving it out of the transportation department into a non-transportation department, you're having to add supervisor employees that you didn't exist in the former transportation department, correct?
I think the best way to look at that is what's the actual cost to move it over to general services, and it's only a $21,000 add between the FY24 amended budget to the FY25 amended budget, or FY25 proposed budget.
Are you familiar with the service? Have you ever written the service yourself?
I have written it, yes, and I have many of my staff have written it. We've pulled
During
back
normal operational hours? So you guys know that on any given day, it's a 30-minute late, and it takes 2 hours to get from Tower District to downtown.
You know, I'm aware of the feedback that you gave us in November, December, and we learned a lot from that, and I do appreciate that. We've learned to train our drivers to communicate with every passenger getting on board the vehicle, to where it's headed, where they can get to their destination the fastest, and we've made a lot of changes because of your feedback, so thank you.
So what is the time that it takes to go from Tower right now to downtown if you get on it on a Friday night?
Well, we can go from one end to the other in 55 minutes.
55 minutes.
From one end, so Campus Point to Tower District, 55 minutes.
So if I get the bus in Tower District right now, or whenever it's operational, I arrive in downtown in how many minutes?
Without having that information in front of me, it's probably around 15, 20.
Could you get me the drive time? Because my experience, it's much longer than that.
Sure, we can do that.
It's still a couple-hour journey. That's why most people don't use it. Are you guys proposing to change any of the signage, any of the pickup locations, the drop-off locations? Because I was hesitant to be supportive of the program, but I agreed to on a pilot basis. I'm still not sold that it is, doing what its goal was, which was efficient, accommodating service. If I take the bus from Tower to downtown, I get here faster than taking the trolley. So for me, it's still redundant service if we're not going to improve significantly the operational aspects of it. So if you could get me a schedule of pickup and drop off and what the estimated time is from one point to the other point, because what we're competing against is it takes me 5 minutes to get from Tower to downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's going to take me 2 hours on a trolley, then it really isn't a good alternative. And I'll withhold judgment on my support for the trolley until I see this updated schedules.
We'll be happy to provide that for you.
Thank you.
I think it'd be really good, and unless you have it, I thought you'd have it with you, Brian, but the ridership data.
Yes, 4,700.
Will show that it's actually, there are maybe one stop that doesn't have great ridership, but the other stops, they have really good ridership. And while I appreciate I just want to go back to the original goal of the trolley, was not particularly an alternative to fax. It was about getting folks from other parts of the city, namely the Fresno State area, excited about downtown to become future residents of downtown. So it wasn't meant as an alternative transportation source from fax. So I don't want, to be held to that standard that, it takes me longer. It was meant to be more of an experience. So, but we'd be happy to get you the trolley ridership information, because I think that for something that was brand new, I think you'd be, I've been very impressed with the ridership information.
Yeah, I fully understand that. You're asking us not to judge the trolley system based on its efficiency of transporting people. You're asking us to fund it for the purpose of promotions and economic, interest and assets. But it's still $1 million. $1 million of the general fund, essentially, that we're going to have to figure out how to balance out. So I want to be clear what the expectations are. I know the first year was, up and running through fax, maybe not the best, permanent home. But I want to make sure that, we're clear about what people should expect when they get on the trolley. And does your data include what is the timeliness of the stops? Are people still having to wait half an hour? Is that tracked when they actually arrive versus when they're supposed to arrive?
That is something that we're doing now through our GPS systems. And we're getting ready to release a full schedule of when the vehicle is supposed to be getting there, based upon GPS data. Thank you.
And I'm still very hesitant on your structure of 2 supervisors for 3 drivers. I think that's unprecedented in any department. I don't think that's sustainable for us to commit that many management employees to 3 drivers. So I'd like to understand, maybe in a memo, maybe in offline, how your structure would work, that you need that kind of ratio.
We can do that.
Thank you. And then my other, does your department, who oversees the Tower Theater and city facilities? Is that your department?
Oh, in what regard?
In capital conditions. I know, like, for example, you're improving the seats here.
Yes.
Is your department also in charge of making repairs to the Tower Theater?
That is split between the operator and General Services. General Services is responsible for basically the building structure and things within the wall. The operator is responsible for everything else.
So have you guys assessed the conditions of the seats in the Veterans Memorial Theater and in the Tower Theater?
So what we're doing right now is we're doing a complete building assessment. That's not yet complete. We're getting towards the finish line, but we're still, I think, a few months away from being able to deliver that, which will include ADA compliance, the costs associated with that, what it's going to take to get the theater back up to standard condition.
What I'd like to receive is a list of all deferred maintenance projects in the Veterans Memorial Theater and the Tower Theater. I want to assess what improvements need to be made now.
Sure.
I think for you guys have identified the seats here, but there might be something equally critical in those 2 other facilities that are primarily general public, access facilities that are routinely used by thousands of people on a monthly basis. So if you can get me a list of what is deferred maintenance on those 2, specifically those 2 projects, it'd be helpful. Thank you, Director.
Thank you very much.
As a follow-up to the facility assessments report, we should have the results of that in a couple months.
Yeah, I don't exactly know offhand when that will be ready, but it's nearing the final stages.
Okay, and do we have any funds set aside to start tackling some of those outcomes of those reports?
We don't know the magnitude, so no.
Okay. And then we have 2 trolleys. Are they both in service at the same time?
We have 3 trolleys. 1 is a spare, and 2 are used for regular service. Yes.
For regular service, okay. And then I know we used the trolley for Porch Fest. Do we have that data back yet?
Yeah, we had 362 riders between 11 and 5 p.m.
Okay. And then moving forward, what is, I don't know if maybe we have this established already, but protocol if a council member wanted to request the trolley for Porch Fest or a park grand opening, or I just want to make sure it's clear if there is a need for utilization of that 3rd trolley. What does that cost to us possibly? And is it just going to be a first come, first serve?
Well, we're getting ready to release a form to capture requests for what's called charter service. Right now, we are flexing up in capacity. Within the last 2 months, we've hired a transit supervisor within General Services, and that person has been driving the vehicle. Fax does not have that capability, so we have to use our own internal resources with our own vehicles. So currently we're limited to one driver at the moment that we've been charging, I believe, $171 per hour. I do expect that to change when we do have full staff next year, and we will come to council with a master fee schedule implementation with that rate when we're ready to do so next year.
Okay. And then the public artwork conservation, it looks like we're setting aside $175,000. Is this coming from Measure P? Is this not applicable for Measure P funding?
This is general fund.
This is general fund. So Measure P will not apply to this?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we cannot, you would think that cultural arts funding would be able to be used for all of the artwork on Fulton Street, but we don't have access to cultural arts funding except via an application to the Fresno Arts Council by a nonprofit. So we really, we don't get a cutout from Measure P cultural arts funding for our own artwork. So that's why, and since the rest of Measure P dollars are already fully programmed, providing operations in the Parks Department and programming, that's why it's general fund.
Thank you, City Manager. The 5 new positions, have these been vetted through ATU? There's no expectation for any labor service issues?
Well, 3 of them are with ATU as the drivers, and 2 of them are with Unit 13. And yes, we've been working hand in hand with them. So we're all working together towards the same goal.
Okay. Any other questions from my colleagues? Councilmember Arias?
Just because Council President reminded me, on the artwork, we did receive an insurance settlement for the artwork on Fulton Street. Where are those funds located, and how are you using the settlement funds or the claim funds?
Let us get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do you have the money tucked in your budget somewhere?
Good morning, Council. So the question was, our fine arts claim, when the money comes in, we have not yet settled that claim yet. When that money comes in, it will go through our liability fund.
What does that mean? So who would
So
then...
yeah, so we receive the check from our insurance company. Once we settle, that will then get deposited into our liability fund.
So who would have access to that amount?
It'll be in Personnel Services Risk
Right.
Management Division in the liability fund. So when we pay claims out of the liability fund and we receive insurance proceeds into
Correct.
the liability fund.
So now you're just confusing me a little.
Okay.
We have artwork. It was
Yes.
damaged. We filed the claim.
Right.
If we get $1 million of that claim by our insurance, doesn't that mean we have $1 million somewhere in the system so we can fix the artwork and maintain the artwork?
Yeah, so we would recover that and place it into our risk liability fund as like a recovery, which would then, those funds could then be proceed to utilized throughout the recovery of the claim.
So the
But-
claim, so the charges get paid. So risk management handles it. They handle the repairs. They have been coordinating the repairs with general services. So the bills will get paid out of that fund, if that's
So
your.
if the council was to zero out this allocation for artwork, wouldn't we just be able to charge it to the insurance claim once we get paid?
So I just want to clarify, what is in this fund is for conservation of all of our artwork. We have many, many pieces that need to be maintained regularly.
Bless you.
Bless you, my goodness. The claim that we're talking about is for a specific piece of artwork. So if you zeroed out this amount, it means that we would not be able to conserve the rest of the artwork.
My last question, how much are we spending now in conserving the artwork that we have in the city? And where is that line? I've never seen that line before.
That's because we have not. This is something that we need to start doing.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carbasi.
Director, if you can go to page 5 of the presentation. I don't know if we need a motion for this, but you talk about some of the programs. The council chamber seat reconditioning was mentioned for $60,000. I want to know why you didn't upgrade the city manager's bell. I'm only teasing. I'll fund that from my budget if necessary. Are we that good? It's been awfully silent. Thank you.
I enjoyed that. Thank you.
All right, Director, I have no further comments up here. So thank you very much for your presentation. At this time, we're going to move on to information services.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, Director.
Morning, Brian Horn, CIO, Information Services Director. Today I'll be presenting the FY25 budget for the ISD, Information Services Department. Pardon my voice, I'm a little under the weather today, so just bear with me. So first page, we have personnel, non-personnel, and interdepartmental charges. FY 2025 proposed, we are proposing $17 million for personnel. And if you look at this, it's quite a bit of a jump from last year. Reason for this is centralization. Last fiscal year, the positions got moved over to ISD without appropriations. The appropriations stayed in the city, other city departments. This fiscal year, we're moving the appropriations from the other departments into our department so that we can finish the centralization job, because their paychecks will come out of our appropriations. Amongst with that, we have 3 new positions, actually 4. 3 of them are for the call center. We had about $146,000 last year for utilizing a bunch of temps. Didn't work out. We could not keep them employed. They wouldn't stay. They'd move on. So we decided that we needed permanent, and so we needed an additional $30,000 to make this happen. So all we're doing is adding $30,000 to our appropriations to get those 3 positions. The other position is a network system specialist in fax. Fax has a need for one, and as part of the centralization process, it will go in our department, and it'll be stationed out at fax. Non-personnel increased to 28 million from 24 million. Some of that is contractual obligations, increase in software contracts, as far as some of our new asks that we're doing for next year, and that'll be covered a little bit later. So the next one. So this is just basically budgeted positions. As you can see, there's some negatives. We're just moving positions around, and the 134 shows that we have 4 more positions this year. The 130 from last year, again, was the moving of the centralization personnel into our department. The PCNs moved, the appropriations did not. So just want to make sure you guys are clear on that one. And our operational impacts. First one, public safety radio. You'll be happy about this one. We implemented Crown Castle last fiscal year. It was a vast improvement over signal strength that we have in that area. It allowed for us to work with the housing units that went in there without them having to buy additional equipment. And this fiscal year, we're looking to upgrade our radio system. Now, the upgrade will make us digital. It will improve signal strength. We're actually looking to add a tower. So we're actually looking to improve on the network, on the public safety radio this fiscal year. Included in our budget is a first-year lease payment. So we're going to go ahead and lease it. We did that last time. Worked out very well. So there's some improvements coming there. Systems and Acquisition Maintenance Fund. Acela was $1 million of that. $1 million moved from planning over to ISD to cover the Acela costs, because ISD is now taking over the cost for Acela. There was $443,000 in 10Xs from other departments, their IT needs. A 10X is a form which departments put in, hey, I got a budgetary request for this, I need this, so they put those into our system as a 10X, and so there's about 443 of those. And of course, not listed here, but there's about $544,000 in software increases in the SAM fund. So centralization positions, there's the $6 million that I talked about earlier, moving the appropriations. Under our ERP replacement fund, this one is the replacement of PeopleSoft. Basically, it's to cover the contractual obligations that we have currently. We're looking for network improvements of $2 million. We do that every year. Our networking equipment needs to be replaced, and right now we're doing a very good job of it, and there's still a lot more that needs to be done. Citywide communication charges, this is like for AT&T. It's like circuits that we purchase for connectivity with AT&T, Verizon. Those tend to go up. We're looking at that. And then the last one is the desktop replacement plan, which is $2.8 million. So those are our big programs that we have. One more. As far as grants are concerned, we have one grant that we got, which is a LATA grant. That was for broadband design work. We are after another grant, the last mile grant. We have not heard back. We applied for it. And then with planning as a partner, we're getting we have the California Automated Permitting Processing Program. So with that, I'm here for questions. My staff's behind me, which I want to thank very much. They do a lot of work, a lot of hard work for you guys, and try to keep the service levels up for you guys.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Up first, we have Council Member Maxwell.
Good morning, Director.
Morning.
Quick question for you, and
Sure.
I apologize if it's been answered. I was out last week. Our office had been waiting on an estimate to do some things internally regarding a proposed third floor foyer project. Do you know if we've been given those estimates yet to do some of that work internally?
You have that.
Okay.
I can resend it to you if you like, but you
Just wanted to make sure. I appreciate it.
You've got it.
Okay, secondly, regarding page 4 of the presentation, public safety radio upgrades and resources. So I haven't heard this figure from you. I've heard it from others that the cost to replace and fix our public safety radios would be nearly $40 million. So explain to me exactly what this $1.5 million gets us.
So we have a brand new communications manager who is actually very good at what he does. And he went through with us, and he actually wanted to assess the network himself before we move forward. And so what he brought in was our manufacturer that already, we have tape radios and receivers and transmitters, and we had them come and take a look and say, look, we need to be digital, we need a better service, we need better signal strength, we need encryption, what can you do? And so this is about $1.7 million for this upgrade. It's the next step. I'm not sure we need to go full 700 megahertz, and that would give you the $35 million figure. With this gentleman that came in and a little bit more research that we did, and we took another look at everything we were doing, I'm not sure we need to go there yet. So this will tell us a lot. We get $1.7 million upgrade will be a next step. Regardless of what we do, it'll be a good next step, and it'll tell us a lot.
So we only have one public safety radio tower for the city, is that correct?
With tower?
Yeah.
No, there's about 13, 14 of them.
Okay, and this addresses how many of those?
All those.
All of them?
Yes.
And adding a new tower.
Adding one more.
So they did the evaluation of where we
Yes.
have holes in the system and evaluated that we needed a new tower site and we needed to do improvements on the equipment on all of the tower sites.
So the information I've always been given as far as dead spots regards Southwest Fresno, is the new tower address that part of town? Because the concerns I've been given in the past have been about dead spots in that part of town.
It's helped. I mean, do you know what areas they're talking about? I'll get more specific with you. So, I mean, I know that there was a problem with the housing. Promesa, some of the properties out there, they were saying, they were trying to penetrate through the wall, and so that we get radio signal straight inside the building. Without Crown Castle, we could not do that. With Crown Castle, it is done.
Well, let me just ask you, this new tower.
Sure.
What part of town is that addressing?
I'm sorry?
What part of town is that addressing?
Go ahead.
I don't know. I just want to, so I hear what you're saying because I had been hearing about signal issues, and I think we made a very strong concerted effort this year. We have been meeting regularly with police and fire. We have daily updates on a lot of it has to do with having problems with the existing radio system, having static, having poor communication. So throughout this entire year, we've been making improvements to the existing channels and trying to determine what do we need to do to get our public safety system, communication system, operating in a way where our officers in the field are not having communications issues. Our communications manager has gone through, evaluated it with our vendor, and come up with this work plan. I don't have the specific tower location, but we already have made improvements to the existing location. So every day we get an email on the updates, and both chiefs respond to us and say, either, hey, this says that the signal's okay, but we heard that there was a problem with static on Tower 4 today. So those communications previously I would say, were not happening at this level, and now they are. And so I can tell you, I get it, TJ gets it, and I sometimes come in and say, wait a minute, here it says that this channel was okay, but I'm hearing from fire that this tower was down. So they are monitoring it every day to make sure that level of following it has not been done in the past. And so we've made a serious concerted effort to make sure that we are tracking it, the complaints, resolving them. We've identified the gaps in the system, and that's what the funding and the budget is to cover.
I appreciate that. That's helpful. That being said, you know, we're being asked to pay for a new tower for first responders. I'd like to know where that's going to be.
Right, right. And so that tower location, I can tell you where this one is. It's over on Dakota and 99.
Okay.
So it's got a pretty good radius. Okay. And so I wouldn't mind hearing more from you where those issues are so we can address them.
Okay.
'Cause sometimes we can address them now. I mean, we might not need new equipment. Sometimes it's a calibration. So I'd like to know from you so I can try to address those. I know Crown Castle helped with the Bullard area, and the Bullard area was a problem, and this particular tower actually helped that issue. So they have communications there now. So I was quite pleased.
Okay, thank you very much, Director.
Sure.
Appreciate your time.
You bet.
Thank you, Councilmember. Up next is Vice President Kerbasi.
Director, I'm going to piggyback up with what my colleague, Councilmember Maxwell, mentioned, and he talks about a very important issue. So we have our own radio communications network, and in that area, example in my district, a lot of county islands, the county has their own network as well.
Right.
Now, Sheriff Zanoni has said in the last year, and I think it's important to have the director of the Sheriff's Department say this, he's actually sincerely interested in potential consolidation or working together. Now, that's a big statement. I understand that. When was the last time we've had conversations with them to look at maybe working together on contracts or working together on a system that will, I know there are two different systems, but what's the feasibility of that even? Is it worth having a conversation?
It'd be tough. I think it would not serve the city as well as doing it ourselves, of course. We do talk to them periodically, both the sheriff and the county. Okay. I can tell you that we've had some conversations with them, and I can explore the signal strength in those areas as well, because a lot of times we cover those and we overcover them and need to make sure that it's there. Now, they have the same equipment we do, as far as the microwave network's concerned, as far as the Zetron's concerned. So if they've got some issues with signal strength, it might be the receivers and the transmitters that are out in that area. But I'd say we can talk about it and just explore. I'm always willing to open my eyes and be open to things like that and just find out what the issues are so that we can figure out how to address them.
Well, let me ask you a little. Gotcha. So I don't want to just have conversations that don't go anywhere. In all sincerity,
right.
What is it that, where do we lose? Where do our residents lose by consolidating or working with the Sheriff's Department, let's say, at least for the metro area?
Our equipment will be upgraded.
Okay.
So we're going to get better equipment, new equipment, and they're not ready to do that yet.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Understood.
we will have the latest and greatest. We are making a concentrated effort just to make sure that our equipment's there and we have good signal strength. So I'm hoping, like I said, in the next couple of months to hear back from the manufacturer as to exactly what we need to do.
Right.
And we're going to go after it.
And
So-
maybe at the very least, just a conversation with them saying, hey, this is the equipment we're getting. It works for us, or it's going to work for us. Maybe you consider in the future when you get your equipment, try this out, and then maybe we can have a future conversation.
I will reach out. I'll reach out.
I appreciate that.
I will.
So I did want to say, though, in the last year, I want to give you kudos as a manager. From a customer service standpoint, every time we contact the help desk, if they can't fix it within 5 minutes, they're in my office, or they're always trying to help. And I hear this from other departments as well. So you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My staff will be glad to hear that, so thank you.
Can I just add one thing with regard to your comment about consolidation? While I agree that, we're all government and we should be as efficient as possible, I have to tell you, I'm a little gun shy having my staff go out and spend a lot of time and effort on this without a serious gut check from the elected bodies. Because the last time, and I'm talking let me think, 15 years ago, there was a task force that was created, a community task force that was created. I think the chamber was very involved and led the effort. And one of the recommendations was consolidations of like dispatch services. And once the government started talking about that, I can tell you that it did not go well from the politics of that decision got very, very heavy, very, very quickly. So if that is something that you're interested in, perhaps that might be something that this council wants to have a conversation with the county board before. I think it's great that Brian should go have a conversation, but I don't want to burn a ton of staff time because it was really bad last time.
I recall some media coverage about that a long time ago, and I understand. What I will say is the sheriff is elected as well, and when I heard him mention this multiple times, I thought, oh, that's a big step to have a sheriff that's interested. Yes, you have the county board as well. But I know what happens. We're going to meet with the board, and they're going to say, well, what do the technical people say? What do the departments say? So I just want to know if it's even feasible. I don't want to burn staff time either.
Okay.
Maybe we have soft conversations at some point. But I hear you. You're right, because it did not go very well. A good point. Thank you, City Manager. I appreciate that.
Oh, here he comes. Oh.
We're having Chief Dyer come back. What was the verdict?
Sorry?
I'm sorry. I thought
Go for it.
No, okay,
No, he's just reminding me of the
Did you
different frequencies that we have on the
Right,
on the
and
radio.
I know there are two different
There's
ones.
VHF, UHF, and basically depending upon, we're moving to digital.
Okay.
So
Did we get a veto? Is that what happened?
I don't know.
No, I'm teasing. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you. For the information.
I'll reach out. I don't have a problem having conversation on a high level.
Okay.
So I'll reach out.
Got it. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Sure.
it.
Councilmember Arias?
Yes, sir.
Director, on the reception issue, as you know, I represent downtown, and I'm the one that gets phone calls from developers who inform me that the city is imposing a requirement to purchase $500,000 radio equipment if they go beyond a certain floor of a housing project because our current system doesn't allow basic fire and radio reception inside these buildings. Are you telling me, for the record, that this upgrade would result in not imposing that requirement on housing developers?
It could, just like Crown Castle did.
It could or it will?
It could, it might. I mean, I'm saying it might because I don't know how far along the signal strength is going to be. I believe it has like a 90% chance of it resolving the issue.
Okay, because right now it's literally a $500,000
right.
Requirement that we're putting on development. I mean, the mayor, the governor, everyone, the grandma's asking us to do high-density housing, multiple levels. But it seems that the non-sexy stuff, which is underneath the ground and radio frequencies, is still a hindrance to doing that.
So like we did with Crown Castle, which resolved the three properties in question. I remember last year's conversation we had, and it resolved the issue. I'm thinking this is going to resolve the same thing. I don't want to give you 100% assurance because I could be wrong. But it's going to be stronger signal strength, and so that should get through the building, should get into there. So I understand what you're saying, and we'll make sure, I'll make sure that's on the list of things that we look for as well.
And secondly, I tend to be a lot more direct and blunt than my colleagues. Are you suggesting that this $1.5 million makes the $40 million request by Motorola pointless?
It could.
It could, or
yeah.
it
Well,
does?
so this is our next step. So what I need to do is get this implemented, see how strong the signal strength is, see where we need, if we need more towers, where we need them. And then after that, I can give you a better assessment and may just make all that go away.
And another direct question for our city manager. Sure. Are we going to no longer hear from police and fire, rank and file, telling us that the radios don't work after this $1.5 million request, or is this a maybe they will work?
Well, so it's my understanding that these system upgrades are going to get us through the next 7 to 8 years, is what has been communicated by the department to us. It's not the 20-year fix. It's not replacing the system, but it will get us another 7 to 8 years out of the system. So there is a system in place now where folks out in the field are to report any issues through their respective chains. We are tracking those issues. There was not a system in place before, and it's my understanding that, there have been complaints out in the field for 10 years, and at some point, the folks out there got frustrated because there was never any improvement, so they just stopped complaining about it. So we have directed both the fire chief and the police chief. We want to know the complaints because we are tracking them. Okay. I'm tracking them. Assistant City Manager Miller is tracking them. The mayor is watching them. So occasionally there's a complaint, but we are able to fix it. Oh, this tower had a power outage. It had a bad router. We replaced the router.
Yeah. Do we have an expectation that our police and firefighters utilize their personal cell phones in order to communicate with the system, or is that just...
They should not be communicating with the radios through those. They can't. Two different frequencies.
Okay. So, my last comment, when I got here in 2019, I think I've said this for the record, it was the worst IT infrastructure I saw of any government agency locally. You guys are now in the top tier, so good work.
Thank you.
I think we've given you all the money that you've asked for. So I do expect that will get better, and I would be more forceful in the conversations of consolidation. I would ask my colleagues to simply consider making a motion to force a consolidation, because Airways is probably the easiest thing to consolidate. I know it goes into you guys' respective empires, but ultimately there's so many county islands and cities that don't recognize borders, and it makes no sense for me for both agencies to have literally the same equipment, the same double staffing, simply for Airways to be able to communicate. So if you have the doors, if the door's been opened by the sheriff, I suggest we walk through that door versus, talking around the edges and the fringes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Up next is Councilmember Bredefield.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we talked about consolidation 25 years ago as well. And then 15, so I'm not sure that it's really going to go anywhere. It's a good idea in concept, but I think people are sensitive about the territories that they represent.
Yeah, maybe you two next January.
Well, that's true. That's a good point. Question, not question. I just wanted to follow through on also what Councilman Arias said. Your department does an outstanding job, Brian. I mean, in terms of protecting from a cyber security perspective, bar none, and that's a testament to you and your staff. And sometimes it's so hard I can't even get in.
Sorry.
That's okay. Or somebody's trying to keep me out. I don't know. But no, you guys are phenomenal, and just want everybody to recognize that. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. My staff appreciates it too.
Up next, Councilmember Esparza.
Morning, Byron.
Morning.
Would it be budget if I didn't ask my annual question?
You want to know why we have more max in the system?
Yeah. So actually, we'll start backwards. Sure. Did we do a survey? I forget if we did a survey.
We did, and I need to get those results to you. But okay. we did do a survey. There weren't many takers on that survey. It came out low.
Really?
So yeah, I can share those.
Okay. Do you know how many city employees took the survey?
I'm sorry?
Do you know how many city employees participated?
I don't know at this point in time. I'll have to go back and look. It's been a little while, so I will get that to you.
What is the level of difficulty or cost in integrating the Apple products?
It's a compatibility issue. There's not a lot of compatibility. Some of the software is not compatible with the Macs. And so we can't deliver the entire suite of applications through. Now, in some cases, like in your case, you don't need everything, so we can do that. But in the most employees' cases, they need more than just what you need. So it's kind of difficult to do. And there is a cost. I don't know when's the last time we did that?
We needed like specific staff who become experts on the OS platform.
We'd have to sorry. So, we're not necessarily optimized for that environment. So we'd have to develop staff, maybe add staff to support the Macintosh platform. As Brian mentioned, there are some applications that are not supported on that platform. We are seeing a growth in support for that platform across many of our applications and services, but it's does not have the same robust support as we have for the Windows platform.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if you can give me those survey results, I'd love to take a look and kind of see again what level of participation there was, how many city employees were interested. But But yeah, you guys did appease me some years back by sending this over, so a little less adamant about it, but it would be great if it was, integrated, more well integrated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City Manager?
I just wanted to touch on what Councilmember Bredefeld said. I want to talk about cybersecurity a little bit. One of the top 3 things that keeps me up at night, if you follow national news, there are agencies, government agencies, that are getting hit all of the time. We are getting hit every single day, hundreds of times a day. There are attacks on our environment. I am so proud to relay, and it's the whole ISD team is amazing, but I would be remiss. We have the smallest yet mightiest cybersecurity team, I would argue, in the country. Our cybersecurity team, I want to brag on them. They have uncovered international threats, unknown international threats that have been fed to the FBI, that have then been fed to international security agencies, and we have stopped attacks by foreign governments on other national governments. It's amazing. It is amazing. Our staff has been commended by both Homeland Security and the FBI for their efforts. So while they're not perfect, and I pray to God that, if and when something gets through, it's really, really tiny because we're not perfect, our ability to fight off the attacks has been remarkable. So I want to commend Brian and his team. Small but mighty cybersecurity, supported by the rest of the ISD team. That cannot go without note because it is so incredible. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that at the type of professionalism and team that we have here in the city. Like I said, they're not perfect, but what they do every day is remarkable.
Thank you for sharing that. Public safety is more than just police and fire, so thank you to your team for everything you're doing. Just a couple quick questions. Maybe I missed this, but are we doing any upgrades to the council chambers just to improve efficiency here?
So we have a couple of things that happened recently. There were some power issues in the council chamber, which is one of the reasons why we've had equipment problems. And we did an upgrade to everything about a couple of years ago. And so you guys have the latest and greatest. Now we just need to work out the bugs. And there's been some of that, plus some Zoom issues, and so a little bit of training here and there. And then as far as the power issues, that's been resolved, and that's part of it. So the other thing that the elephant in the room is the screen behind you. I might have a pathway for that. So the screen's been there since the building was built. It needs to be refurbished. You can't refurbish it where it is. It needs a direct clean room. You can't take it out. You can't do anything with it. Once it's out of there, it's out of there. Nobody wants to put it back in. So we have some other modern ideas that we'll bring up to you probably within the next 6 months, if we get all the costs. But it involves LED and a brighter screen. So that was our big task that we have not been able to tackle, but now we have a possible path forward. So.
Okay, and is that funding included in this budget?
No, it is not, but we can see what we can do.
Can you provide us with a cost estimate on what that would take to make those upgrades, please?
Sure.
And then my last question is in regards to the 311 call center funding. It looks like we're transitioning that from the general fund.
Yes.
Is that a strategic move?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what that we hope to achieve with that move?
Looking at TJ. So it's been in the general fund because it started at the city manager's office. ISD is an ISF. So what we're trying to do is move it into the ISF so that the operations will be smoother and cleaner for us. And it will be, it is spread across the city. Kim reminded me of that. So it'll be less of an impact general fund going forward, but it is spread across the city. So it won't be in general fund anymore.
So it'll be picked up by all the departments?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, I have no other council members who wish to speak at this time, so thank you, Director,
Thank
to
you.
you and your team.
Thank
your
you
work
for your
is
support.
very much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Up next, we have the Finance Department. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, council members. Santino Denisi, Finance Director and Controller for the City of Fresno. It's my pleasure to present our proposed budget for the 24-25 fiscal year for the Finance Department. The department's responsible for overseeing the city's accounting policies, preparing the annual financial report, commonly known as the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR, along with the single audit. Additionally, the department manages the debt service and investment activities of the city, administers payroll for staff, and oversees the business tax, grants, management, internal audit, and utility billing and collection units. Slide 2, if you've seen with the other formats, present the large changes or summary of changes for the Finance Department budget this year. For both personnel and non-personnel, the changes that you're seeing from our current year budget to next year are largely the result of expiring one-time programs, ERAP and ARPA items that are managed out of the Finance Department. Other than that, just the reductions that the department has made through the reduction exercise. Slide 3 here shows our staffing anticipation for next year. It is projected to be status quo at 119 FTE for next year, and you'll see a note there that in the current year, you previously approved the addition of 2 positions in the fall as we work through a restructure and reorganization within the accounting section specifically. And then on slide 4, we note our large contractual obligations anticipated for next year, and largely the same as the current year. Contracts for audit services, of course, both for our citywide audit, Measure P financial statements that is done annually, armored car services, claims reimbursement, and other scanning, storage, and service contracts that we have as well. And then lastly, we do have a small amount of ARPA resources remaining in the Finance Department for next year, just to finish out and close out some community-based organization grants and items that are, again, managed specifically at the Finance Department. So this doesn't represent all of ARPA that it's carrying over, of course, but just the amount that's housed within the Finance Department. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Up first, we have Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Council President. Director, I noticed you're requesting 2 new positions.
No, so as I noted, those positions were approved with the 4th PAR amendment in the current year, so actually in the fall. I think it was September of 23.
Before we knew that we had a $47 million deficit?
That's correct.
What's the purpose of these positions?
So as we noted in the PAR amendment, we've reorganized and restructured our accounting unit. Really what we noticed there was a lot of key person dependency. And so we've created some additional structure to have additional layers and coverage for some of our core processes and procedures. We added a division manager to oversee all the, what I would call operational aspects of accounting, accounts receivable, accounts payable, our GL management team, and then the Treasury unit. So before, those sections within the Finance Department were not reporting all to one manager. So in order to create some duplication, to make sure that each section is also talking to one another in terms of how they process their work, we came forward with the recommendation to restructure in that manner.
Are the positions currently full?
They are. We did fill them.
Good. What vacancies, if any, do you have in your department?
Right now we have I think 2 principal account clerks, a senior admin clerk, and a senior accountant auditor that are vacant.
Thank you. Henry, can you give me a list of all the current vacancies by department with title listed? Thank you.
Sure.
Director.
And I should mention too, Councilmember, that the vacancies I'm quoting are I'm concentrated on the finance department. I need to get back to you on our utility billing and collection section.
That's
separately.
fine. We'll get it from the department.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, no further questions, so thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
That was quick and concise. Thank you very much. Up next, we have Budget and Management Studies Department. Good morning again, Director.
Good morning, everyone. Council members, for the Budget Department, you'll see that our FY25 proposed budget is $1,701,400. One note I'd like to make on FY24, our budget is primarily structured where most of our funding need is to cover our personnel costs, as you'll see. Within our non-PERS in FY24, of that $50,800, we are planning to upgrade the citywide budget system from an in-house server to cloud, which will provide us greater security as well as functionality. This is the trend of technology, and so we came to you on May 23rd requesting your approval, which you granted to allow us to move forward. So in FY24, we are going to have a one-time cost of $34,000. And then moving on to 25, which I'll cover in a bit, is the ongoing maintenance. Our staffing level is at 10 employees, stays constant. It's a team I'd like to just say is amazing. I truly appreciate all of their expertise, their dedication to working towards this budget process. And again, one of our operational impacts we're anticipating in FY25, which we built in our budget, is once the migration to the cloud, we then will have a charge of $25,000 for ongoing maintenance for the new system. So with that, that completes my presentation and can answer any questions.
Thank you, Director. Colleagues, any questions? See none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your time is very appreciated. All right, last but not least, we have the Airports Department. Good morning, Director. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Council members, Henry Thompson, Director of Aviation, to present the Airports Department FY25 operating and capital budget. FAT continues to grow and perform well. The growth that we've seen at the airport is consistent with what we're seeing in the Central Valley as a whole. Our projections for this next year are positive. This past calendar year, we ended the year with the record 2.4 million passengers traveling through the airport. So far this calendar year, we're on pace to exceed last year's projections. Later this week, we will launch nonstop service to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, a route we have pursued for many years. This is significant for the Valley as it connects FAT with the world's busiest airport. It will provide the quickest way to the East Coast, but it will also provide service with connections to Florida, the Caribbean, Europe, Africa, and South America. This really is a big win for the airport. We continue to work on new domestic and international destinations, so there's more to come. To match this high demand with record capacity, our terminal expansion program is under construction, and significant work has been completed and will be accomplished in FY25. In the next few weeks, you will begin to see steel erected, and by fall, the terminal will be taking shape. We will continue to look forward to a fall of 2025 opening. In addition to the terminal expansion program, we continue to improve our infrastructure with projects in planning and design for a new air traffic control tower, which is taking shape. And we will also be planning for the design of a new reconstructed primary runway. Finally, as we grow, our focus will remain on our highest priorities, which are safety, security, and the customer experience.
Henry, I'm sorry, are you on any of the slides? I'm having a hard time
No,
following.
it's kind of my opening.
Oh, okay,
Sorry.
okay. Thank you.
Moving on. Okay, how do I figure this out? Okay. Okay, the airport's proposed FY25 operating budget is $33.3 million. This represents approximately 9% increase over FY24 and provides for the airport's operating needs and support for growth. Next slide. Okay. Too far there. Okay. The airport's proposed FY25 capital budget is $88.5 million. The bulk of this request supports the terminal expansion construction that's underway now and will be funded with federal grants and debt service. Other major capital improvement projects covered here include $4.4 million for design of our primary runway and taxiway reconstruction at Chandler, which is also supported by grants. The airport's proposed budget supports approximately 146 positions. This accounts for the equivalent salaries of 5.75 of the 9 new positions requested and 0.25 FTE for one position that was budgeted in FY24 at 0.75, and it's made whole in this budget. These new position requests support increased staffing needs for the terminal expansion and for our general growth. Next slide. Operational impacts, 3 areas I would point out: contractual obligations, utilities, and technology. At $8.3 million, most of our increases in contracts, they're programmed increases in the contracts. However, also included in this are increases for airport fire support and for additional customs and border protection staff that we need for the terminal opening that we're starting to plan for now. And then utilities, there's impact there. The bulk of the 2.7 for utilities is, of course, PG&E, and we're managing that. And then we have some technology increases that are driven by the need for updated operational security and financial systems that we have at the airports. Federal grants. The FY25 budget includes approximately $34 million in federal grants. Approximately $28.4 million of our grants request will be used for the terminal expansion project, and the remaining $6 million are for the runway design I spoke of at FAT, as well as for runway reconstruction, taxiway improvements at Chandler. Okay, the airport's terminal expansion program is our priority for FY25. That's our priority program. So far, we are on budget. However, we will return to council later this year for a change order for the expanded international arrivals facility that was requested by council last year. We continue to steer the program for a terminal opening in the fall of 2025, and we are making up some time from a slow start, but things are progressing well. Our other program is marketing and air service. There continues to be good interest in the airlines launching new service and expanded service out of Fresno. So our efforts will continue to include regular meetings with the airlines to present opportunities for new routes. We are excited to launch nonstop service to Atlanta, as I mentioned, but also Dallas Love Field. Both of those start this month. And that does show that we are having some success with our air service and marketing efforts. And throughout the year, we plan to continue our community outreach efforts. This slide highlights some of those efforts and partnerships that we will continue throughout FY25. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you. First up, we have Councilmember Maxwell.
Good morning, Director.
Good morning.
Not so much a question, but just a memo that I request every year. It relates to the grant that we received to do the improvements for the homes in the airport flight path. We will submit these afterwards, formally following up. But again, just the number of homes in the qualifying area, how many have been serviced so far, how many have are left out there that still need some sort of improvements. And then going back 5 years, how much have we received for this, including this current year as well. So we'll be requesting that later today.
Okay, and I can give you some quick stats.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So far, we've treated about 1,400 homes, and we have about another 1,000 to go. And since the program started in the late 80s, early 90s, we spent about $40 million, so it's quite a bit.
So $40 million over 1,400 homes?
Yeah, and some of that may have been property acquisition as well, so I can get you the breakdown of that.
And how long have we been in the process of upgrading these houses?
Since the early 90s.
So about 30 years, we've been able to do just over half of the houses. We have about 1,000 left. That looks like, what, another 20 to 25 years to get houses?
I wouldn't say that. It's all dependent upon funding, federal funding, and we never know how much that's going to be. Some years there's more, some years there's less.
How much, on average, do you say we receive from funding for that project?
On average, we receive about $3 to $4 million per year.
And can you remind me how much of that goes towards the design versus the actual improvements?
I'll have to get you an average on that. Not quite sure on that one.
Okay. Have we ever allocated any money from within the department to supplement this project?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'll research that.
Okay. And just another 2 to 3 decades seems like a really long time for me. You know, when I'm out there,
sure.
You know, a big chunk of that is my district, and, you know, I hear it, especially when I'm out there canvassing and try to have a basic conversation with somebody. It's almost impossible. I've been invited inside of homes around the airport district, and again, try to have a conversation sometimes could be difficult just because there is a lot of overhead noise. And I know a lot of those families would really appreciate some sort of relief, again, whether that's the door or the windows,
sure.
Some sort of upgrade to mitigate that. You know, some of these families have lived there since the 60s and 70s. You know, hope they're still around in 20 to 30 years, but I would like to find them some quicker relief than that, if at all possible. So yeah, we'll be submitting a formal memo request. Probably have a few additional questions and inquiries beyond the ones that I asked you here today.
Absolutely.
And just following up on the tower that we need, the new tower, can you go into a little bit more detail about all of that? You know, why is it needed? Where are we at? How much is it going to cost? What are we looking for money?
So the air traffic control tower at FAD is owned and maintained by the city of Fresno. And then it's leased to the FAA that operates it. The tower was constructed in 1962, so it's over 60 years old. It's at the end of its useful life. It's deteriorating. We're doing everything we can to maintain it, but it currently doesn't meet the current business standards. It doesn't meet FAA tower standards. It's not ADA accessible. Critical components like the elevator goes down a couple times a year, and it takes months to get back up because the parts actually have to be manufactured because they don't make them anymore. And so we've actually been working on trying to replace this tower for over 20 years here, and it's a very complex effort within the FAA to make this happen. So we're finally making some headway, and we're focused on meeting all of the requirements for a new facility, and trying to get it positioned for some bill funding that will help. It won't fully cover the cost of it, but it will help kind of springboard that effort to get a new tower. The new tower will be twice as tall as the existing facility, so that gives you some idea of how deficient it is for today. So we are now going through the environmental process, trying to get it in line, and we'll provide you with a better update once we know where we're at.
The total cost on that again, Director?
Yes, so the cost is looking like it's going to be between $75 and $100 million for a new facility.
Have we made requests for federal earmarks for this project?
We are. We're looking for all the federal funding we can get, and so we're going after bill funding in the final round of bill funding. And then Congressman Costa's office is working very closely with us on earmarks and just trying to get the project moving in general.
Okay, I appreciate it, Director. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilmember. Up next is Councilmember Arias.
Director, Councilmember Chavez has been asking for this for 13 years. For me, it's only been 5 years. When do I get to see a photo of Councilmember Butterfield on the airport, as every other airport in the country has? Are we going to be told again that you're working on it and then be here 4 years later with the same question? Or is Mayor just blocking our photos going up? Or is it the city manager blocking our voices being heard?
No. I'm actually very excited to report that we now do have a location for that, for the elected officials' wall.
So we were told that a year ago.
Well, I'm going to update you a little here. So it's actually...
It stuck with me.
It's been stuck for a year to
No,
right
no,
now?
it hasn't been stuck with me for the year, but it's a TV screen and it's got rolling. It's very similar to when you guys are on break here.
Right.
But I thought it would be interesting that, so we put some like district facts in each one. So we're going to be meeting with each of you to make sure, but apparently it stuck with me. So I will get it off my desk and then it'll come to you to make sure that your districts are being, the little factoids are what you want per district, and then we can put it up.
So, not that I don't believe you guys, but last year's budget conversation, I was told exactly the same thing, and I asked you need a motion. You said no, we'll have it done this week.
So it'll be done. It'll be done before you adopt the budget. We're going to have it done.
Okay. Well, somewhere in the airport, I'm assuming, right? Or is it going to be on the outside?
Yes, you can actually physically see it there. It's on the wall. It's en route to the baggage claim. There is a hallway, and it's in
like in a closet somewhere?
No. It's on a wall.
By the restroom?
Past the restrooms, yes.
Yeah, past the restrooms. Yeah, by the urinal, exactly. Over the urinal? Over the urinal?
No, not at all.
Where I get to hear Jerry's voice every 30 seconds. This is Jerry Dyer, the only king of Fresno.
The mayor of Fresno, who is responsible for economic development per the charter. So, yeah.
There's several charter officers in our Constitution, is there not? Or is we just one?
Not charter responsibility for economic development.
Oh, is that all the airport is economic development?
And communicating with the people, charter
and
responsibility. So it'll get done. It will be done before you guys adopt the budget.
All right.
The current is stuck on my desk. I will get it off today. He'll meet with you, show you each slide for your district. If you want to change pictures or factoids, that's great. And then we'll get it up.
Can we negotiate location? Because I don't think any of us want to be by the restroom.
So that's something that we spend a lot of time on, is trying to identify the best location. And unfortunately, we really don't have a lot of wall space.
We got plenty of wall space in that airport. We've all been there. There's plenty of wall space.
Okay.
We'll put you up in Casa Corona, Councilmember.
Yeah, yes. As long as you don't call it authentic Mexican food, we're fine.
Well,
I don't want to be petty on this, but it's been 5 years, and it took 5 years to find a
We're
location.
so close, so close.
5 years of the council asking, yes, you can go back into record
Five
books.
and a half.
Councilmember Sawyer brought it up 5 years ago. So it's been 5 years. Director, on a serious note, I did see your memo on Chandler Airport. As one member, I disagree with the full strategy laid out in that memo. As it comes to Chandler Airport, I think you do have to adjust the lease cost. Those leases are extremely generous, and we're losing revenue. And I believe it's not appropriate for the international airport to continue to subsidize the operation of Chandler. And I know you guys are looking to do it in the form of fees, but I assure you this chamber will be full when people start getting the bills for all the fees. So I think it's a better approach to address the structural lease cost versus tagging on 20 fees to generate the necessary revenue to operate that airport. With that, I do want to say in closing, 5 years ago when I arrived, the airport felt like its own little city. It acted like its own little city with its own mayor, its own police chief, its own rules of engagement and contracting and things of that nature. For the first time in one of your slides, I see all the partnerships that you have with the community. I am reminded that the airport is a regional asset. It's not just a city of Fresno one. It gets Measure C dollars for that reason. It gets earmarked dollars. And for the first time, I feel confident that you guys are actually forming partnerships with different organizations and reflecting that regional asset approach. So thank you for that, and good reviews on the mobile food trucks. I think you guys have found a way to, fill a gap while we build the international wing, and I am looking forward to authentic Mexican food when it opens.
Yes,
Taco
sir.
Bell mayor does not qualify, just so we're clear. So thank you, Director.
Thank you, Councilmember. Up next, Councilmember Esparza.
Thank you, Council President. So one thing that requires no wall space is, we're sitting in the Phoenix airport. They go through all the officials, the mayor, and then all 10 or 11 council members, however many they have out there. So that requires no wall space. So maybe a 30-second blurb from each one of us would be a good supplement or alternative to that. We have to hear less from people complaining about hearing Jerry's voice over and over, and they can complain about hearing all our voices over and over on repeat as they sit in the terminal. Director, our airport is 100% proprietary, right? There's no general fund support out of.
That's correct.
Okay. So obviously your budget's gonna rise and fall with the traffic that goes through our airport. Just for the benefit of the public and the council, can you give us kind of just a brief history of the last 5 years, where we're at now, and where we're headed projection-wise, to the level of traffic that goes through our airport?
Yes, so FAT has had a record of sustained growth over the past 10 years. And last year, we grew 12% year over year. This year, I believe we're looking at about 8% growth. And so it's a good story, it's a positive story. And it really speaks to the strength of our market, not just in Fresno, but the Central Valley as a whole, because despite a significant dip that we took during the pandemic, Fresno was one of the top airports to recover from that event. There are some larger airports out there that still haven't recovered to their 2019 numbers. So again, that speaks to the strength of the market. We are in growth mode. I think as more and more people move to the Central Valley, we're going to see some level of growth. But locally, we are seeing fewer people that are driving to LA or San Francisco. You just don't need to do that today, particularly since the arrival of Southwest, which a lot of folks were traveling for that specifically. But today you can get to just about anywhere in the world with just one connection. And so people are catching on to what's available, and we'll continue to try and grow that as well.
Yeah, we've got, what, 16 or 18 direct flights? Is that?
Yeah, we're about 15, well, we got Atlanta coming, about 16, yeah.
Yeah, 16. So yeah, anywhere with one connection, really.
Yeah.
So the 12%, 8%, is that, I mean, have those been anomalies? Is that normal? Is it just?
Yeah, normally, you know, if you're able to get 3%, which is what we use a lot for our projections, that's really good. So we're far exceeding the typical.
Okay, and then in terms of the future, I mean, do we have projections, or is it just sort of wait and see? I mean, we have some level of projections to project, you know.
Yeah, we're required to do forecasts of our traffic, and we're in the process of starting a new forecast, and that will give us some sense of where we are. But as an example, the current forecast that we're operating under, we were projecting to be at the 1.3 million passenger level in 26, and we're there in 24. So we've kind of been outpacing the forecast, so we'll do another one and see where we're going to be.
What kind of critical mass would we have to hit? So I mean, we have, you know, a lot of 16 direct flights, and you mentioned LA and San Francisco, right? It's easy to zip down. Like, we've probably all done it at least once instead of driving. Tried it out. Fairly convenient, especially if you have pre-check. But what kind of critical mass would we have to hit to be able to get? What kind of demand would we have to hit to have, you know, direct to, say, Ontario, Palm Springs, smaller, sort of more similar sized areas to ourselves?
So for markets like that, we'd have to show the demand. We'd have to demonstrate that we have enough passengers in our market that want to go from Fresno to Palm Springs or Ontario. It's a relatively short flight, it's mostly considered a drive market. But if there's a demand there and we can demonstrate that, then we can try and present it to someone. Would probably need to be a smaller airplane because ultimately we would need to fill those seats. And like a Southwest, I just don't see us being able to put 130, 40 passengers to Palm Springs every single day, you know. So it's demand driven.
All right. Well, thank you, Director.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. So that will conclude today's department presentations. Today was a short day. Don't expect that for tomorrow. Tomorrow we have capital projects, economic development, planning and development, public works, Department of Transportation, and the Animal Center. As a reminder to the public, we will be taking public comment at the very beginning of the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and that adjourns today's meeting.